All right, we are back here covering the NBA on the podcast. The basketball season never truly ends. The off-season drama now starting in the NBA. Joining me today to break it all down, my favorite NBA guys to cross it up with on the podcast here, Rowe and Tom Bocchino from the Sorry to Interrupt podcast. Welcome back, fellas. How are you?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having us back.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having us. Hope all is well.
Yeah, hope all's gone well too. I mean, since the last time we talked here, I did get some cash in here because the Nuggets won the NBA title.
Yes, we know you had to toot your own horn. Congratulations. Great pick by you. I think you did that right around the All-Star break, right?
I said it right before the playoffs. I said it was the Phoenix, Denver, and you guys pushing for a pick. I said I'm picking the Nuggets because nobody's respecting them.
You sent us a text, and I told Tom, I said, I'm not responding because I don't like peacocking. And then,
you were peacocking big time. It was deserving,
but you deserve it. Yeah, I'm not saying I wouldn't have done the same, but in the moment, I didn't want to respond.
Yes, good job by you. I feel like you might have been the only person, and not even just in the podcast world, but in life, that picked Denver and stuck with them through and through. So, good job by you. Sean and I flip-flopped throughout the playoffs, and then finally, what did we both settle on Denver, Sean, by the time we got to the finals?
We settled on Denver when they won Game 5.
Hey, no, I picked Denver in 5.
No, we
before.
did. Yeah. Yes, I'm kidding. You pick Denver in 5 before the finals. I picked it in 6. But yes, Mike, you deserve all the flowers. You took them. I was convincing myself that the Phoenix experiment was going to work, and hell, maybe it will this time around. But good job by you.
Yeah, I gotta say the finals definitely are interesting here because Denver found ways to win these games in multiple ways, whether it was, going up and down the floor. They even won a game where Miami managed to keep in the 90s and slow it down defensively. Denver was able to adapt to ways Miami could not.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said it all series to Sean. If Miami came back to earth and shot their regular season percentage from 3, which was about 34%, and they were much closer to the 40s in the playoffs, they were going to lose this series in 5, which is exactly what happened. Miami lives and dies by Jimmy Butler going to the free throw line and shooting threes. And if that wasn't going to happen from their ancillary guys, all those undrafted guys, then it was going to be a wrap. Denver is just too good of a team, and Denver can beat you so many ways. I mean, you saw it. There was times where Denver shot well above 40% from 3 and they beat you. And then I think in the closeout game, or maybe it was game 4, Denver shot 22% and still beat Miami. So they were just way more talented. And it took everybody but you, Mike, all the way to the NBA Finals to realize it. But they were by far the best team in the league.
Denver was impervious to sustained runs by Miami because of Joker and what he could do, whether it was him shooting, whether it was him backing somebody down and going to the line, or finding a cutting Bruce Brown or Christian Brown or whomever, or Jamal Murray making big shots. They were not a team that was going to allow one of those 24-2 sustained runs by Miami. So because of that, Miami could never really get things going, and Malone coached a good series. So we should have seen this all along like you did, but yeah, once again, congratulations.
That's it. We're done. We're done with the congrats.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a little about Denver here. I think this is interesting with how they won the title here, because this could be, I think, in my opinion, a sign of what's to come with the way NBA title teams are built now going forward, especially now with the new CBA making it harder to trade with the new luxury tax rules if you get above that second apron and stuff like that. I mean, Denver's a team that they drafted their guys. They drafted Joker. They drafted Murray. They found complementary pieces. They not just, assemble a lineup of stars. And, I mean, we saw this work for Milwaukee a couple of years ago with drafting Giannis and finding Middleton and stuff like that. We haven't really, since the Heat broke up, haven't really had the superstar team of 3 guys coming together in one location and winning here. So I think if Denver's model becomes a way that more teams win, I think it's good for the league, in my opinion.
I think it's going to be forced. More than anything, just given the second apron and the new CBA. I do think teams will model it after Denver, where, I mean, you're not gonna find a Nikola Jokic in the second round ever again. I mean, that's something that teams probably shouldn't aspire to do. But aside from that, like for the Spurs, for example, with Wembanyama, I mean, you might as well treat him like a quarterback in the NFL. When Russell Wilson, for example, where the Seahawks had him on a rookie contract, they can pay everybody else. Why not go all in and take advantage of that while the rest of the teams are paying their superstars and just try and home grow a championship and go for it early?
You both are right, but to me, it is so much easier said than done. Like, yeah, all you have to do is draft Nikola Jokic in the second round.
Yeah, that's what
everything goes great. All you have to do is draft Giannis Antetokounmpo, number 15 overall, and all you have to do is like with Patrick Mahomes, you just have to trade up to draft him when nobody else. Like, you have to also have a system in place, and you have to be patient. I think patience is now going to be awarded a little bit more because, listen, Denver easily could have, decided when Murray got hurt, hey, we're going to move on. They weren't going to pay Porter Jr. They decided to give him that deal. And they brought in a much better group of players because the last couple of years, whether Murray was hurt or not, they didn't fill out that roster very well at all. So their general manager deserves a heck of a lot of credit for bringing in the right kind of pieces to complement these guys.
Yeah, I did feel
absolutely.
I feel like I've said it before on the podcast. I feel like this is more of a throwback also to like the teams like in the 80s and the 90s where you just built together, kept it together for a few years, and they learned how to win together. Whereas I think in the Superstar, it was like, don't win in 3 years, okay, eject, go to the bottom, tank. I think now you see teams have more patience. Like, let's see what's going to come together. I think especially for the local teams, I think Denver is a good sign of what you want to become. You could think you have.
Yes, Mike, the Nets experiment failed. I get it.
Yeah, rub his face in the dirt a little more. No,
like, how many times can you say the Nets failed without saying the Nets failed? You did it.
No, I'm saying even now, I think both local teams, I think, are in position to, have that potentially. You have like a one like key guy in the building already, and then you can build around that guy and grow as a team.
I agree with you in theory, and I think that's a smart fan's perspective. Unfortunately, we live in New York, and on top of that, I think besides the fact that the markets are different, the other difference is that Denver was kind of forced to be patient as opposed to a lot of other teams, and this is pointed out by a couple of people because Murray was injured, so they always had that over the last couple of years as kind of a fallback. As they didn't have those Oklahoma City get so close with their homegrown team or a few others where you just never got over the hump. They just went from whatever they were in the bubble to this because Murray wasn't healthy. So it was kind of like a forced patience. So I'm interested to see if teams like the Knicks or you name them will actually go with that when they aren't given the opportunity of patience because they don't have their second best superstar player suffer a torn ACL, or at least hopefully they don't, and they're forced into being patient.
Yeah, let's start getting into the offseason here. Obviously, you have the NBA draft this week. Wemby's going number 1 to the Spurs. What other storylines are you going to watch at the NBA draft Thursday?
For me, who goes 2? Is it Scoot or is it Brandon Miller? Also, is 2 or 3 moved by either Charlotte or Portland? There's Zion rumors floating out there. Charlotte apparently does not have any interest in exchanging number 2 for Zion, but they do with Brandon Ingram. We'll see if New Orleans would get that adventurous. I can't see it. Then for 3, all reports are from Dame's camp that if they keep that number 3 pick, that's going to be the end of the Dame era, and he's going to officially ask out, which I think is best for them. And then the rest of the way, I just want to see which teams stay pat. I mean, you've heard Dallas, Indiana, Atlanta is looking to possibly trade back, so teams with movable assets could look to move up in this draft. So I think it's going to be pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I do too. I think honestly, I think Scoot's more of a lock to go number 2 the closer we get to the draft. Charlotte just had him come back in for another workout, and that usually doesn't happen unless they're going to take the guy. So I think the draft really begins at 3, trade-wise, and who gets taken. And you've already named all the storylines. There's just so much up in the air and so many moves that can be made. I'm sure we're going to talk about Knicks later and what I'd like to see them do.
Yeah, I also feel like there's a lot of teams that are sitting there like on 3 picks in the first round or like a bunch of high second rounds. They're not going to make all those picks. There's going to be a lot of trades.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get to the Knicks here because obviously they have a very interesting offseason here. They get to the semifinals. They lose to the Heat. They gave the Heat probably a tougher time than anybody in the East for a while until Boston's comeback. They still have a big decision to make on Josh Hart. They're going to try and want to consolidate probably and get another star alongside Brunson. here. So, like, what do you guys think is up for the Knicks in the offseason? What do you think they're going to be looking to do?
Tom, this is your team. You go first, brother.
Well, at the beginning, right when the series ended, I was pounding the table to get rid of Randall, but given his contract and what's going on with the new CBA, and also the fact that his ankle injury came out and it was a lot worse than what we had anticipated it was, I think that unless the Knicks make a huge splash here, they're going to kind of stand pat, probably re-sign Josh Hart. I already told Sean I'd like to see them go after fringe guys, unless they're going to go after Zion, which is my ultimate dream. I want to see them go after fringe guys like Marcus Smart and maybe Jonathan Isaacs, a couple other players like that fill out the roster, and just get better and hoard those draft picks to when the next unhappy superstar inevitably becomes available.
I think they're going to be patient unless the guy that they really want shakes loose. I do think that patience, even though I said is rewarded, I think that they have a situation right now where it's going to be very hard to have a lackluster season, I'll say, after going to the second round with Knicks fans, you guys getting a taste of what that was like. So I think that the names that I would throw out there, I mean, could you get Colin Sexton for cheap from Utah? It sounds like they're going to make him available. Is Cat realistic? Like, do you make a play for Chris Paul to be Jalen Brunson's backup? Like, I think those are the kind of guys you're looking at as far as like the real superstars. It doesn't seem like there's really any ties towards Lillard. So I don't know. I like, Tom, your idea of just kind of rounding out this roster and making sure that Hart is back. I think he does so much for that team. But you do need to get better players and you need to get more scoring. And I think that shooting is going to be something that's, whether it comes from the draft or whether it comes from a trade or free agency, that you have to get better at. I saw Obi Toppin rumors today, possibly being shipped out. So I don't know. I think that there's a lot that you can do. I just think I worry about you deciding this is the time to go get the guy, and that being somebody like a Cat.
Yeah,
I don't think Cat is the guy. By the way,
yeah, I don't think
not a winning player.
I don't either. I think if they're looking at purely for a free agent upgrade, I think like you're looking more obviously bringing Hart back. I think guys like Dante DiVincenzo, that's your guards who can give you more shooting and play a little defense. I think that's what they're looking for, are really free agents wise. Somebody to that role.
100%. And I mean, I don't, Chris Paul's out there, like you said, Sean. Colin Sexton's available. I don't want somebody that's going to take both those guys, unless Chris Paul is willing to take a lesser role. Both those guys are guys that they do all their work with the ball in their hands. They're high usage rate guys. And at this point in his career, Jalen Brunson's better than Chris Paul, and he's already better than Colin Sexton. I don't want the ball being taken out of his hands to be given a lesser player. I'd rather go for a wing guy. Our wings were exposed, especially by Miami. We need a wing defender. We need a 3-and-D type guy. That's why I'm digging on Jonathan Isaacs, who I think we could get for really cheap because he never plays. Maybe, the New York Water could keep him healthy. And I want a guy like Marcus Smart. We need more dogs on defense and more three-point shooting.
Yeah, sure. The one thing you worry about with them is, like, you considering, like, I think we talked about the CBA a little bit here, but, like, Jalen Brunson is relatively underpaid compared to what he showed that last year. And you wonder if the Knicks are saying here, thinking, you know what, we're going to pay Jalen Brunson in 2 years. Like, do we have to go get our guy now before the CBA makes it too hard for us to trade?
Yeah, and go ahead, Tom.
Sorry to cut you off, Tom. I don't really Mike. I don't really care if they want to go get their guy. I care more about who their guy is, like who they identify as their guy. That's all I have to say.
Right.
If it's Cat, I'm not cool with that.
They identified Mitchell as their guy. They just got outbid by Cleveland, right? You need a guy like that where the front office was like, "That's our guy. Let's go do it." But they didn't believe that Cleveland was actually going to pony up what they ended up ponying up. So. As far as like what you're gonna have to do, like I agree. Like when you don't have any rookies that you have to pay. Like I know you already paid RJ Barrett, but that's an easy contract to move if he's the focal point of a trade, right? Like I know some Knicks fans are very torn on him from an unbiased perspective. I think he's going to be a nice player in the NBA for a long time. Is he a rotational player that you could see in the finals, like an Andrew Wiggins or somebody like that down the road? Sure, I would believe that. Is he going to be any more than that? I can't personally see it. Maybe you guys feel differently. But there's definitely room to get better, especially because you don't have a lot of guaranteed crazy money on the books.
Yeah, that's for sure. Let's circle back to them here. I want to talk about the Nets here, obviously, as well, too, because they get swept out of the first round by the Sixers, but they do have a lot of intriguing young talent on their roster. Mikal Bridges looks like he's going to be the guy to build around there. Like, Nets have a lot of picks from Phoenix coming. They still give a lot for Houston in the form of swaps and trades, but they have a lot of pieces here. So, what do you see the Nets trying to do?
Well, right now there's a lot of Lillard buzz. So Tom and I talked about this on our pod yesterday. If you're the Nets, do you make the call? Yeah, of course you do. Especially if he becomes made available. He's been on record of saying he would love to play with Mikal Bridges. They're really tight. I don't care about timelines. I think, Tom, you and I had a great discussion about it last night. Like, it's the most overused excuse to not go out and do things in the NBA. Chris Paul was not part of Phoenix's timeline when they brought him in, but he got them to a final. Mikal Bridges is that guy. He is that good. Is he a bona fide superstar in this league? That I don't believe he is. But you can see what his value is where you have teams offering 5 first-rounders for him. So they are going to build around him. It sounds like Cam Johnson, they are pretty much guaranteeing to bring him back. I would be shocked if he wasn't back. And then if Lillard doesn't work out, I think they're going to be patient. I think Lillard is their guy. Tom, you said, like, the Knicks aren't going to just go get their guy. It has to be the guy. And I think Lillard is the guy for Brooklyn. If he doesn't come, then I think that they're happy to fill out this roster around the fringes, kind of like you suggested the Knicks do. Be a first-round playoff team. Continue to grow Bridges as your, franchise guy. And then see who is available with all this draft capital that you've acquired. Although I will say, out of the 4 Phoenix picks, 2 of them don't look all that enticing anymore because I don't see Phoenix being absolutely catastrophically bad in the next 3 years.
Yeah, Sean, I echo everything you say. I think the Nets need to make a couple moves to get rid of, they need to get a little slimmer at the wing, need to get a couple of guards, and I would go all in for Dame personally, if it's a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, like, in terms of the only thing that's dragging Nets down is the Ben Simmons contract. Other than that, like, you love what they have to offer up here.
Simmons is such an enigma, Mike, because I've been in the camp of you trade him, but maybe his value is so bad right now where if you can get anything out of him, that's better than what you might have to just eat in terms of trading him and then having to force a trade of Cam Thomas or one of your draft picks just to ditch him. Or, maybe next year is the year that you dangle him because he'll be on an expiring. So it's tough, but not having to pay KD, not having to pay Harden, not having to pay Kyrie. And then in addition, the contract Bridges is under is super team friendly. It's very comparable to the deal that Brunson's under with the Knicks. So that's advantageous for the Nets. And obviously, Sy has shown his willingness to go way over the luxury tax.
Yeah, let's go to the free agent market a little bit here. Obviously, you mentioned one of the guys being a big free agent here, James Harden. Do you buy any of the Houston rumors that he might go back there? Or do you think he's just holding out for a better deal at Philly?
I read that he's actually going to take less money to stay with Philly. I don't know. I feel like we're going to be seeing, outside of like the Washington guys that are probably going to leave because they're doing a full teardown, I feel like it's going to be a depressing free agent season. I just feel like we're going to see a lot of guys going back to where they were last year. I mean, I think the sexiest free agent, if he does leave, that has the best chance is Fred VanVleet. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, I think it's between Philly and Houston, and there seems to be the tea leaves that he wants to stay in Philly and run it back with Joel. So from that vantage point, I think he's staying in Philly.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned they're the Washington guys. The only ones you really watch here is because Chris Paul's contract got guaranteed with the trade, so he's going to be there for a little bit. Like Porzingis, you wonder, like, does he try and go somewhere else now? Do they try and trade him somewhere? Like, there's not much else. A lot of these guys you say are basically going to end up just staying where they are.
Yeah, I think it's going to be telling when we see what happens with VanVleet, what Toronto's going to do, because I think if VanVleet goes, then you see a Siakam trade. Trades are going to be so much more fun in this offseason than free agency. Like I said, I think VanVleet is the biggest piece to go. And that's, compared to a couple of years back, I mean, it's not a very fun free agency. I think everybody else goes back to their respective teams from the big names that you want to see.
Well, I think, and I don't see him on your list here, Mike, but I think Kyrie is destined to go back to Dallas. And then when you're looking at, teams like Houston and San Antonio that have loads of cap space, I think you're going to see guys like Austin Reeves get big contract offers. I think you're going to see guys like Cam Johnson for the Nets. They're going to have to probably match a pretty sizable offer sheet that Houston or San Antonio is going to give them. Guys like Dylan Brooks, like those are the kind of players. Brooke Lopez, those are the kind of guys I think that are going to get a lot of money early in free agency.
Yeah, I'm also curious how the Draymond situation plays out with the Warriors also, because that seems like very weird what's going on there.
I think he goes back, no doubt.
I agree.
All right, so let's get now to the fun, which is the trade market here, because obviously there's a lot going on here. Before we got a chance to come on here, Bradley Beal gets traded this ridiculous deal to Phoenix here, where I think at this point you look at all the money they have to pay to him and Ayton and Durant and Booker here. I mean, the three of us might as well get our shoes and get to the gym because they might need to pay his vet min to fill the bench.
Yeah, we might have to suit up. Listen. I mean, I think Washington is a joke of a franchise, and they got basically nothing for it, and they deserve it. But I don't mind the deal for Phoenix because you know what? I said it to Sean yesterday on our podcast. If you're going to go all in with Kevin Durant and make that trade, and if you think this makes your team better, then do it. Because if this brings you closer to a championship, that's what your goal is when you're paying Kevin Durant and Devin Booker that much money.
Yeah, I think if you figure it out later, whether you keep Ayton or you trade Ayton for more pieces or you get guys like Tom, you made a great point. Like when we talked about it on our pod about how Denver's going to be a premier destination. And Mike, I wonder if you agree with us too, because of Jokic, and you saw what he did for guys like Bruce Brown, Christian Brown, and KCP. Like, I think Phoenix is going to become that when now all of a sudden we have this middle class in the NBA that's really not going to have much of a market. So I agree. I think they'll figure it out. And when you can get Bradley Beal for that little, you do it every time.
It always reminds me of like the John Carl Stanton trade for the Yankees back in 2017, where like was it the greatest roster fit? No, but like they paid off almost nothing to get him and got money kicked in by Miami. Like at that point, just might as well just do it and make it work.
And for everybody that says they wouldn't do it, like you be in that spot. You say I'm not going to take that talent for pennies on the dollar, and see how that works for your job security.
Yeah, I will say, the Washington, giving him that contract with the no trade clause before the CBA was probably one of the stupidest decisions that's been made in the NBA in a long time.
Oh, it's a joke. I mean, they don't give out no trade clauses in the NBA for a reason because this is what ends up happening.
Yeah, that's for sure. Here, let's go to some of the other guys who might be on the block here. We'll talk about Dame a little bit earlier, Damian Lillard now, and you think this does hinge on the draft here? If they can't ship out 3 for immediate help, he's just gone?
I personally think so. And the reason, I mean, when Tom and I did this pod last night, we said to each other, we posed the question, is he on Portland opening day? And we both said yes. But I was really hesitant because, Chris Haynes seems to be his guy that he talks to all the time in the media. And his comments have been very cryptic from reporting by Haynes, saying he is committed to Portland. He does not want to leave Portland. But with the caveat of, if they keep that 3rd pick, he's out. And I just don't see the player being available that's going to change his opinion. The only one could possibly be the next guy you have on your list, Mike, which is Zion. And would Portland, is the thought of Zion, who really hasn't played at all since he's been in the pros, enough to entice Lillard to stay? And also, if you're New Orleans, is the package of number 3 and maybe a Shaedon Sharpe or Anthony Simons enough? Because to me, I feel like that's just another development piece with Zion. That's no guarantee. That's not Tom's hypothetical of Anthony Davis yesterday or anything like that. So I think if Lillard does get traded, it's Brooklyn. Because Miami doesn't have the cap space to do it with what they're going to pay Bam, what they have with Jimmy, and what they have with Tyler Hero.
Yeah, the Miami thing is weird. I feel like everybody wants to go Miami, then they have no money to make any of these trades work.
No, I think they're spent. And, everybody always says, don't sleep on Miami this, don't sleep on Miami that. And they do find a way sometimes. I mean, when they went out and got Jimmy Butler for basically nothing on that sign and trade. But that was more of a free agency thing. I am sleeping on Miami this time because I just don't see how they have the assets or the money. Like Tyler Hero and Kyle Lowry doesn't move the needle for me. I'm sorry. Like, especially with all the picks that the Nets have. the Nets are in the catbird seat. I really do think that if they want him and Dame is willing to leave, the Nets can pony up more than enough to go get him. And then I'm going to have to hear Sean's mouth again for the entire next couple of years.
Yeah, but if it worked out like it did the first time, and we weren't friends with
Dame is not Kyrie Irving.
Well, and that's it. But you'll still have the last laugh if it doesn't work out. So.
Yeah, let's go to Zion here, because obviously this one sort of percolated the last week or so. We heard rumors that the Pelicans really want to get Scoot Henderson. They want to find a way to get up in the draft and do it. And the rumor is that Zion is on the block to make that happen. We've heard that teams may prefer Brandon Ingram here. Zion is kind of cryptic whether or not he's happy in New Orleans or not. So, what do you think the chances are that he ends up on the block or getting moved?
I mean, he is the most interesting player in the NBA outside, I guess, Wembanyama now in the last 10 years to me, where his talent is just so overwhelming. But the other side of the coin is that he may never play another NBA game again, and that's kind of the risk you take, and that's why his worth is what it is right now. I've read conflicting reports that they're going to make it work, and then I've also said that there's no chance he's on the team when they go to training camp or whatever the NBA's version of that is. I mean, I don't know. Personally, I'd really like to see the Knicks step up and try and put him and RJ Barrett together, and just try and break the record for the most lefties on one team at a time. But I don't know. I think Portland is the one who could really make a move here with number 3, and they have so many young players. It's just, is New Orleans willing to do that, or do they want to be a win now team?
Yeah, they if Portland, that is, consults with Dame, and Dame signs off on it and says, "Yeah, I'll this is what I want." I think Portland does it, and I think New Orleans does it too. Aside from that, I mean, the Knicks are definitely the most fun destination because I don't think any other team is really going to offer what New Orleans could possibly want. And the risk reward, obviously, we're not in that building. We don't know the whole deal. You hear those reports that Tom mentioned, but I don't know. For me, I think it would have to be for the number 2 or number 3 pick, and that's really it.
Yeah, I think with the Knicks also, I think one thing you have to watch here with that situation is, especially on draft night, if they pick up Derrick Rose's contract option for that, makes you feel like they're close to trade because his salary is with Fournier or Reynolds enough money to get a big salary back in return.
That's a good point.
So that's something I think I'll watch on the Knicks front here. And the fit with the Knicks will be fascinating if they do pull off Zion because they have a lot of picks. I think they're trying to realize these protected picks. That the Washington one's gonna be pretty much useless here. Who knows? We get this Milwaukee pick, so maybe consolidate a little bit now. And if Zion's available, to say let's put him and RJ together, see if we get some magic happening with those two and Brunson.
Yeah, exactly. I just hate the Mavericks and Kyrie Irving because we could have had that pick as well had they not sucked towards the end of the season because of Kyrie.
Yeah, that's for sure. Here, let's go with some other names here. Any chance Trae Young is moved?
No. But I do think that his teammate, DeJounte Murray, could.
Yeah, I think Trae Young is the ultimate flaccid peepee, we'll call it on your podcast. It's just, I don't think he's going to fetch you anything, and I think whoever he gets traded for, both fan bases just end up in the exact same position. They're just changing the name on the back of the jersey. I think Trae Young, a trade for him would be like Trae Young for, I don't know, name another player that's not a winning player. That just puts up bullshit BS stats. Yeah. Trae Young for Cat. There you go.
Yeah, I just don't think that his value to other teams is as much as it is marketing-wise and selling ticket-wise to Atlanta. Say what you want about him as a player, and he is flawed, but he means a lot to
that asses in the seats, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, he is box office. We saw it in that playoff series against the Knicks. We saw it against Philly. We've seen it at times. I just think he means more to Atlanta than Atlanta would be willing to take back. But DeJounte Murray, I do think, would be on the block because they want to shed some salary. I think John Collins is finally going to be on the move as well.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting because I feel like he's a guy who's linked to the Lakers so much. And all the Lakers offers are saying it's 2 role players and picks in the far future to get a deal done. And it's one of those things if you ever follow Twitter Yankee fans, the MLB trade machine, it's oh, we'll give you 3 prospects for your 3 best players, and the math works. Doesn't work. You need to have actual.
I love the reports that are the Lakers are focused on acquiring either Trae Young or Damian Lillard. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm really interested in dating Taylor Swift. I don't think that's happening. So,
who do you think has a better chance?
I think Sean does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen? Oh yes, you've met Sean Phillips. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't see
what
it.
What are you talking about? I'm going to die.
Oh shoot! Let's move on to the next guy
with a winning personality.
Yeah. So let's go.
Oh shoot!
Let's go to the next guy on the list here, Zach LaVine, a rumored Knicks target at one point, and this is something that you have to see here. Like, does Chicago feel like it's time to blow it up? And it's something like I would watch. So I think like he feels like a prime Laker target. It feels like something the Knicks could circle back. I mean, think about LaVine.
In Chicago, it's like, how long are we going to do this for? I mean, you could say like the Celtics have been, with the same team for almost 10 years, but at least, and they haven't won a title, but at least they've made it to a million Eastern Conference Finals. Has this team even made the playoffs? And it feels like this team has been together forever. I think it's time to sell all. It's just, with LaVine, between the knee issues and whatnot, I don't really know what he's going to fetch. And he makes me nervous. He's a high usage, low efficiency guy, and I just hate that.
I think that he actually, and again, you guys can chirp back at me. I think he's a perfect fit for the Knicks. You've got Brunson, who is going to be that guy. You've got Randall, who I don't think Chicago has any interest in taking back. You would have a bona fide, legit scorer. And yeah, you'll have to deal with his absolutely non-existent defense, but you're going to have nights where he goes for 45, 50, and Brunson doesn't have to, and Randall doesn't have to take the last shot. I think he would fit well in that team, in addition to the fact that Chicago, I think the reason they held out for so long is because they wanted that version of the team that started the 2021 season with Lonzo. Lonzo may never play again, and I think they're starting to face that reality. So they're going to have to break this down, and I do think he would work for the Knicks. I really do. What do you guys – Mike, what do you think?
I think the thing that I'm not sold on is I don't think Tom Thibodeau would find a way to fit him in seamlessly. I feel like Tom Thibodeau
But he said Tom Thibodeau was one of his favorite coaches, and he applauded him for his time in Minnesota, saying he gave me the freedom to be the kind of player I wanted to be. Without him, I wouldn't have turned into what I was. So I think there's a relationship there, a good one.
I do, and Sean. I think Sean has a good point to where I think we're at the point now at the Knicks where they're. It's going to get to where we're holding out for a perfect player or a super duper star player, and those players unfortunately just do not become available. Maybe Luka Doncic in like 3 years when he right after he murders Kyrie Irving in cold blood. But I think at some point you have to say like he's going to cost less capital wise, draft capital wise, and he might just be the best fit and our best chance to get a true star in here.
Because here's the question I want to ask both of you guys. It's two-pronged. One, do you want to live in a world where Jalen Brunson has to give you 45 points to win?
No.
Okay. I
don't think Jalen Brunson wants to live in that world either, by the way.
I don't think he does either. So do you want Julius Randle then being your predominant plan B and doing the Randle handle where he gets it stolen from behind him for holding the ball too long?
I feel like I'm at like therapy where I'm only getting asked questions that you're going to get the answer you want out of it. Is there a C? None of the above?
C, do you want to go back to where you were 2 years ago where you weren't even in the playoffs?
Okay, I guess at this point, Mike, I think we just have to take – if you ask Sean, you should be the GM for Chicago. We might as well just take Zach LaVine then.
Yeah, Sean, what's the package, in your opinion, if they Knicks try and trade for LaVine?
Yeah.
I want to see how desperate Chicago is to move him, but you definitely start with Emmanuel quickly, Obi Toppin, and then you go to the pit. I think you do everything you can to not have to touch RJ. But seriously, is RJ untouchable? Like if Chicago's like, we're not doing this without RJ Barrett, you hang up the phone. How much more of RJ Barrett do we have to see to be like, once again, I think he's a nice player. I'm not emotionally attached to him, but come on.
I still think RJ's too good to be included with that package and some picks. Like if you said the quickly Toppin and RJ, okay, fine. But if they want picks on top of that, I'm hanging up the phone.
Well, they're going to want picks.
Then you can have one or two, top 5 protected first round picks. Because LaVine, has the guy even made an All-Star team?
I don't know that. I don't know. But again, you're not asking him to come here and be the guy. The Knicks issue in the past has been
sure, but I'm also not paying. I'm not paying out the ass for him not to be the guy. You know.
But you don't have to have him that. Again, you just said you're not going to get the super duper star. This might be the best you get. A rotation with him, Brunson, and Randall is really, really good. You just took your scoring up to a whole new level, and you have a guy who's not afraid in crunch time and doesn't have to be the exclusive ball handler because Brunson's that.
He has made 2 All-Star teams, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, looking at some of these options here, I mean, you could also throw Quentin Grimes in the mix here. You're looking at I'm assuming you're probably throwing in like Fournier to sort of make the money work in terms of that situation.
But my point is that like if Sean's talking about draft picks and whatnot, it's like, yes, do I agree that we're probably not going to get Luka or whoever the next unhappy super duper duper star is? Yes, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to pay for Levine as if he's that guy just because we're not going to get the other guy. Okay. Like, I'm not going to overpay. You know what I mean?
Are you going to keep all of these draft picks, the 11 that you have in the next 5 years?
No, not at all. But let's not give up the really good ones.
I just think it's funny with Knicks fans where it's like, I want the superstar. We need to move on. Okay, well, here's a great, great player because he's going to be available. Not good enough. It's like,
no, I mean, I'm not being that Knicks fan right now. I just admitted that. I'm saying I don't want to pay Luka Doncic prices for Zach LaVine.
You're not going to.
I don't want to have to. If it's 2 heavily protected picks and RJ, then that's fine.
I just think that if you got him, you would be so good for so long, terms of being a consistent playoff team, probably second round, maybe third round playoff team, where those picks are not going to really mean a whole lot.
Yeah, I think this is the most likely star to the Knicks that I think scenario here is going to play out. I think that they are very interested in looking at him. I mean, they have the assets. I do feel like as I said earlier, the Brunson contract being what it is, and you're not going to have to pay him again in a few years, this might be sort of like a shit or get off the pot situation for the Knicks.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. All right, and the last one, I think this might be more of a longer term look here. I think we have to keep an eye on Embiid and Philly. I know that, especially if Harden goes back, they give another run. But I think if they fall flat again, I feel like he might get frustrated and start being a guy who just wants his way out of there.
Now, Mike, I don't think you did this intentionally, and if you did, you are truly brilliant. But boy, does this segue perfectly from our last conversation, because if Joel
Embiid is the one star I'm keeping all those good picks for, by the way.
Exactly. If this is on the Knicks' radar and they're willing to play the long game, okay, now I can buy into your hope and your plan, because man, Joel Embiid at Madison Square Garden with Jalen Brunson, that would be sick.
Yeah, that was intentional on my part, because I started setting in mind if you had a guy that you could get in here in terms of a guy who might actually come available if things keep imploding, I feel like he's the closest one. I think him in New York, being down low with Jalen Brunson in there and whatever you have to give up, you give up apart from Brunson, and make it work. I think that would be great.
But with the Knicks and their draft picks and whatnot, like Sean said, you're not going to make all those picks. Even if you go out and get a guy like Levine, it's going to be a few years before Embiid sours enough to want to leave. I still think we'd have enough assets to be right there with every other team trying to make that deal.
You are. I mean, that's the thing.
Even if we went on a God Levine, I still think we would be.
Yeah, because you wouldn't have to give up everything.
Exactly.
And you're in a perfect position for what this new iteration of the CBA is going to force teams to be. Both of our locals are. But the Knicks in particular, with their 11 picks and Jalen Brunson and the second round matchup with the Heat,
can you believe that? The Knicks acting like a savvy organization. Isaiah Thomas is out there ruining the new organization, Phoenix. Just wait for them in 7 years, see where they're at.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun, because I do feel I agree with you guys that plus you get Levine and maybe you get hot when players get to a conference finals and Philly flames out again. And Embiid says, I want to go here, and just kind of force his way there. That's something you can also keep yourself in play for.
Yeah, I don't.
100%.
I just think that, the thing that we know for sure in today's NBA is things change so fast. So freaking fast. And you don't want to be caught in the game of musical chairs falling and sitting on your ass. So, you got to figure out something. And I just can't see a world where the Knicks are patient enough to admit that, all right, if we get lucky again the second round, we're going to be a second round exit again. Like, expectations change. You have your point guard that you've been clamoring for years. You're not paying a lot to. Randall's a good player, whether you want to trade him or not. I think some of these young guys are much better in terms of where they hold in terms of sentimentality with Knicks fans, as opposed to what they actually are. Yep. You've got so much flexibility with these picks, most of which are not going to be great picks. You gotta be aggressive. And hey, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I don't think you're going to look back on whatever the Knicks end up doing and be like, unless they gave up everything for Cat this summer, and then I'll rescind my point. But I don't want to talk about it anymore. I think your organization is smart, and I think if the right deal is there, I mean, guys, do you buy into the reports that they were pretty in on Beal? He just wanted to go to Phoenix?
That would have been a stupid move on their part, I feel like.
Not if you gave up what Phoenix did.
Yeah, true. If we gave up literally nothing, I'd be happy to have Bradley Beal.
Yeah, I feel like
I don't know. We may look at. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
It was a function of Bradley Beal saying, like, I'm going here. I have no trade clause. I have all the power. If he let them have a bidding war, I think you're not getting the price that Phoenix paid.
Very true as well.
But the fact that the Knicks were in on him, I think, shows that they're willing to be aggressive, which seems like it's a good thing for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, how in on them were they? Because it seems like the Knicks are quote unquote in on most guys, and then they overvalue they overvalue sometimes their picks. They're very guilty of that, and they overvalue their players sometimes. I don't know. Maybe it's a New York thing because the Yankees seem to do that with every single one of their prospects as well.
Yeah, the amount of times I've heard about Yankee prospects being with next greatest things ever. Like I said earlier, with those MLB Twitter trades, or they use the trade machine. It's like, oh, the Yankees 5th, 6th, and 9th prospects for Marcus Stroman and Cody Bellinger. Let's make a deal. The Cubs wouldn't make that deal.
You got to get off those fan Twitter pages, Mike. Not good for you.
They get
sent, those are bad.
They get sent to me.
Yeah, I would somehow find a way to find whoever's sending them to you and put them on a bit of a hiatus.
Yeah, block them. Mike, I got a question for you about the Jets, real quick, since we're both Jets fans.
Yeah.
What do you think about signing Dalvin Cook? Just because I've been reading the reports about Breece Hall that he's running real fast, 22 miles an hour, but we know that it's going to take at least the first month on that knee for him to get back to 100%. I think it may even take half of the season for him to get back. Do you think that the Jets, if they can get him on a reasonable deal, would be a good move to get Dalvin Cook just to hold down the fort?
Yes, because they remember when they back in 2010, they brought LT in towards the end of his career. He was a great fit for that offense. So Cook coming here could be the second coming of that.
Yeah, I just like it as kind of. I know they got the guy out of Pitt, and they really like him, but I don't know if I trust rookie running backs. And we're truly in a win now for the first time in a very long time as Jets fans, in a win now situation. And I just want to get a sure thing in the backfield. And let's just drain the last little bit out of Dalvin Cook before we have our true bell cow and Breece Hall coming back.
I think it's a no-brainer. I think if Cook wants to come here, I think he wants his money more than picking the perfect situation. I feel if the Jets don't give him the money, he's not coming here.
That's a good point. One can dream.
Yeah, we could see. I want to thank you guys for coming on. If you want to keep up your podcast, how can they do that?
Yeah, you can check us out on Spotify and any of the other mediums. Sorry to interrupt podcast. Or easiest way to get it, because we tweet it out every time, is on Twitter at Sorry Sports.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for all the time. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Sir.